Blika was a small, peaceful village hidden in the hills of the kingdom of Badu. The inhabitants led a simple life there. They cultivated, went to get water, and in the evening, they sat together to talk. Everyone knew each other in Blika, and the news circulated quickly. If something happened to a person, the next morning the whole village would talk about it. But recently, fear had settled in the village. For a few months, young women had been found dead, one after the other. No one knew what was killing them, but one thing was always the same. Strange marks on their necks. They looked like snake bites, but no one could be sure. No snake had ever been seen near women when they died. It was as if the deaths were happening in secret, which made the situation even more frightening. The head of the village, Roasota, sent hunters into the forest to find the snake, but it came back to bite. The deaths did not stop, and the fear only grew. The mothers began to warn their daughters not to travel alone at night. Even in the middle of the day, women no longer felt safe. The village, once lively, became silent, and people no longer trusted each other as much as before. But there was one person who did not seem to care about all this fear: Yovo. If you asked any woman in Blika who was the most handsome man in the village, the answer was always the same: Yovo. Tall, with a muscular body that showed his hard work as a builder, his skin was smooth and dark, and his eyes shone as if he always knew something that others ignored. Yovo had an irresistible charm that made women forget all their fears. When he walked around the village, women laughed and blushed, hoping he would look at them, and when he did, it was as if the sun was shining only for her. Yovo knew how to use his appearance and his sweet words. It was not only his beautiful face, but also his way of speaking, moving, and always seeming in control. He could make a woman feel unique in the world. But behind all this charm and beauty, Yovo hid a dangerous secret. He did not care about the fear that reigned in the village or the dead. He continued his life as if everything was going well. Yovo knew he was handsome, and he did not hide it. He walked in the village with confidence, head held high, always looking for his next prey. Blika's women were attracted to him like bees to honey, whether in the well, at the market, or in the fields. As soon as Yovo was in the parishes, she could no longer turn her eyes away. But it was not just a matter of physique. Yovo had a way of speaking that made every special woman feel. He always knew what to say at the right time. His voice was deep and sweet, like the calm before the storm. And he knew how to make a woman smile even when she was sad. He never rushed. Yovo took his time, slowly attracting them, gaining their trust, making them want him. If Yovo wanted a woman, he always got her. All he needed was a charming smile, a few sweet words, and in a short time she was his. Once he had conquered a woman, he took her to his hut, away from the village, far from the curious looks. There, under the soft moonlight, Yovo exerted his charm. He was gentle and patient, making sure that every woman felt the most important in the world. But as the night progressed, Yovo always asked the same strange question: do you know what the difference is between the virility of a man and a snake? Women never knew what to answer. They laughed, thinking it was a joke. But before they could say anything, Yovo whistled a strange, sweet and disturbing sound that floated in the air. The women then began to feel uncomfortable, as if something horrible was going to happen. And that's when it happened. Something was changing in the room, and before she could react, she felt a cold and smooth sensation on her skin. A snake, dark and dangerous, slowly came out of Yovo's clothes. The women remained frozen, their fear too strong to scream or flee. The snake wrapped around her slowly, as if he were playing with his prey. Then, with a quick stroke, he bit them on the neck. The bite was always the same, two sharp marks, as if holes were sinking deeply into their skin. The venom spread quickly. The women wailed, their bodies trembling as the poison took effect. In a few minutes, it was all over. They were dead, and Yovo remained there, standing, without any emotion on his face. In the morning, the woman's body was found on the village square, cold and pale, with the strange marks of bite on his neck. The villagers gathered, shaking their heads, wondering what kind of snake could do such a thing. But no one suspected Yovo. He was too beautiful, too charming, too perfect. With each new death, the fear in the village grew. But Yovo did not care. He continued his life as if nothing had happened. The women continued to blush and laugh as he passed, totally unaware of the danger lurking behind his appearance and his sweet words. The life in Blika continued. Even with the fear hovering over the village, the women were more careful, especially at night. But the daily routine of looking for water, cultivating and trading continued. Every time a woman died, people cried, but no one had an answer. The village chief, Roasota, tried to calm the inhabitants, but deep down, everyone knew that something was wrong and that it was not a simple snake that caused his death. One day, a new face appeared in the village, a woman named Kosa. She was different from the other women of Blika, tall and gracious, with a skin that shone like polished wood. Kosa held on with confidence, and her beauty did not only reside in her face or her body, but in the way she moved, as if nothing around her disturbed her. She had come to visit her aunt, who lived on the outskirts of the village, and as soon as she arrived, she drew Yovo's attention. Yovo noticed Kosa from the first time he saw her in the well, contrary to the other women, who could not help but look at him or blush when he passed. Kosa was not impressed. She did not laugh, did not look at him, and did not even smile at him. Instead, she looked him straight in the eyes, his calm face, as if she controlled everything. This intrigued Yovo. He was not used to being ignored, and Kosa's calm seemed a challenge to him. Yovo had always managed to conquer all the women he desired, and he would not let Kosa be the first to resist him. From that moment on, Yovo decided he had to have her. He began to observe Kosa more closely. He noticed that she was always polite, but never too friendly. She spoke kindly to people, but did not let anyone get too close. This only increased Yovo's desire. He was not only attracted by her beauty, but also fascinated by her mystery, by her strength. The more he looked at her, the more determined he became. Yovo was not used to failure, and he was not going to start now. He began to follow Kosa, looking for opportunities to talk to her, to charm her as he had done with so many others. But every time he approached her, Kosa kept his distance, as if she knew something he did not. One afternoon, Yovo found his moment. Kosa was in the well, filling his pot, and there were fewer people around. Yovo moved towards her, his usual smile on his lips. "Kosa," he said, in a soft, deep and sweet voice like honey. "Let me help you carry this." Kosa looked at him without expression. She did not seem impressed by his appearance or charmed by his words, which pushed Yovo to want to conquer her even more. He waited for her to blush or laugh like the others, but instead she simply nodded. "If you insist," she said calmly, backing away to let him take the pot. Yovo felt a little victory. He easily lifted the pot and placed it on his head, making sure to show his strength. As he walked to his aunt's house, Yovo tried to have a conversation, but Kosa remained silent. She answered his questions politely, but without saying more than necessary. This was not what Yovo was used to, but he thought it was only a matter of time before she succumbed to his charm. All women ended up doing it. "She just pretends to be difficult," he said. He just had to redouble his efforts with her. After this meeting at the well, Yovo could no longer get Kosa out of his mind. She was not like the other women of Blika. Most would have melted under his smile, laughing and blushing, but not Kosa. She was different. The more she stayed away, the more Yovo's obsession grew. He was not used to a woman not paying him attention to which he was used to. It was new, frustrating, and it only strengthened his desire for her. Yovo had always obtained what he wanted from women with little effort. A smile, a few sweet words, and Blika's women were his. They were all the same, docile, ready to be seduced. But Kosa, she, did not fall into his traps. She seemed to be immune to his charm, and this made Yovo crazy. Day after day, he observed her when she went to get water, when she walked in the market, even when she went to the farm with her aunt. Kosa moved with a quiet force that made her unique. She did not seem to care about the opinion of anyone, even less than that of Yovo. She led her life peacefully, and this made her even more attractive to his eyes. Yovo began to find excuses to talk to her. At first, it was small things. Offer to help him carry his burden, try to have a conversation, try to get his attention in any way. But no matter what he did, Kosa remained polite but distant. One evening, Yovo could not take it anymore. He decided that he had to do more, that he had to regain control of the situation. He could not let Kosa escape him. He had never failed with a woman before, and he was not going to start now. Yovo knew that Kosa often visited her aunt's small farm, just outside the village where she grew figs and vegetables. He decided to wait for her there. It was a hot evening, and the sun was setting, projecting a soft orange light on the fields. Yovo leaned against the tree, arms crossed on the chest, eyes fixed on the path leading to the farm. Finally, he saw her. Kosa walked slowly. Her steps were regular and graceful. She wore a basket of figs on her head, her straight back, her face still so calm. When she approached, Yovo moved forward, blocking her way. "Kosa," he said, his deep and soft voice. "You are avoiding me." Kosa raised his eyebrows and looked at him without losing his calm. "I did nothing like that, Yovo," she replied quietly. "I was just busy." His answer irritated him. Yovo was not used to being treated this way. He was used to women being happy to see him and not to act as if he did not matter. But he forced a smile, trying to keep his cool. "You are always so serious," he said as he approached. "Why would you not let me accompany you? We could get to know each other better." Kosa looked at him for a long time, his face still impassive. For a moment, Yovo thought she was going to accept him. But finally she shook her head, bypassing Yovo. "I do not care, Yovo," she simply said. How could she just walk away from him like that? No one had ever said no to him that way. His pride was hurt, but even more so, his obsession for Kosa grew. He could not let her escape so easily. As Kosa walked away, Yovo's eyes darkened. He made a promise to himself he would have, and she could not resist him for long. Yovo's frustration grew as Kosa continued to resist him. He was used to women falling quickly under his charm, but Kosa was not like the others. The more she ignored his advances, the more his obsession grew. He knew he had to change his approach to conquer her. This time, he decided to be patient, to play with the time. Instead of covering her with attention as before, Yovo withdrew. He stopped following her everywhere and barely spoke to her when they met. It didn't take long for Kosa to notice this change. She expected him to keep trying, but now he seemed distant, almost disinterested. This change in Yovo's behavior worked. After several days watching him from afar, Kosa became curious. One evening, while he was sitting in front of his hut to sharpen his tools, she approached him. "You have been silent lately," she noticed, in a calm but curious tone. Yovo sat up, high on his head, giving short, expressionless answers. He knew this would attract her more. After a few moments of silence, Yovo suggested a walk, and Kosa accepted, slightly lowering his guard. As he walked, Yovo maintained a light conversation, just enough to put her at ease. He wanted her to believe he had changed, that he was more than a seducer in search of attention, and slowly, it seemed to work. Yovo had played his cards well, and now Kosa's defenses were lowering. She no longer looked at him with suspicion, and his answers, formerly reserved, became softer. Yovo could feel that the moment he was waiting for was near. His patience had paid off. One evening, as the sun was setting on the village, Yovo decided it was time to act. He invited Kosa to his hut, offering to spend a quiet evening together. Kosa, now more at ease with him, accepted. The air was still and the village seemed almost too calm as he headed for Yovo's hut, located on the outskirts of Blika. Inside, the flickering light of a small oil lamp projected soft shadows on the walls. Yovo offered him a seat and poured him some palm wine, his voice calm and soothing as they chatted. Kosa slowly sipped the wine, his eyes looking at him attentively but without the same hardness as before. Yovo smiled inside, knowing that the time had finally come. He slowly approached, gently fluttering his fingers, and began to speak with this low and seductive voice that made him famous. "Kosa," he said softly, "I thought of you. You are different from the others, strong, independent." Kosa smiled slightly, still relaxed, but Yovo could see that his words had an effect. He leaned a little closer, his voice almost a murmur. "Do you know what the difference is between the virility of a man and a snake?" Kosa's eyebrows frowned slightly, confused by the sudden question. She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could say anything, Yovo began to whistle. The sound was soft at first, barely noticeable, but it became louder, filling the room with a strange melody. Kosa leaned into his seat, suddenly uncomfortable, but it was too late.